What's new, 802? I'm Becca Hammond, and you're listening to Vermont Talks. Vermont Talks may include graphic or explicit content. Listener discretion is advised. I changed the name of the podcast. It is now no longer Burlington Talks, it is Vermont Talks. Today we are talking with Seth Cronin from the band Sputoola. Sputoola! It's the greatest name for a band ever, and it's so much fun to say. Sputoola was formed in 2016 and is a progressive funk rock band. Pale Blue Dot was their first single, released in 2018, and they have just released the self-titled album that is their very first, Sputoola. Go check out Sputoola's album. They are so much fun. I like them a lot. Sputoola is comprised of Seth Cronin on guitar and vocals, Ian Hunt on bass and vocals, Matt Berry on drums, and JJ Vanacore on the keyboard. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Seth. Here we go. Welcome, Seth. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Becca.
Thanks. Can you tell me what your band is called?
My band is called Sputoola.
And how the heck did you think of the name Sputoola?
Sputoola. It's interesting. Originally, the band started just three folks, myself and two lifelong friends. I'm Seth Cronin and Ian Hunt on bass, Matt Berry on drums. And it was just like a jam club. I would just have, people stop by my basement, and we would just, totally improvise, no structure, no aspirations at all. But after doing that for, over three years, we had such a repertoire developed, and just kind of a pent up energy to kind of expose some of the music we were creating to some of the friends and people in our lives. We just decided to take the project outside of the basement, and then of course it needs a real name, right? And so how do you think of a band name? There's no obvious way to do it.
Oh, right, yeah, and it can be anything, right? People come up with things in the funniest ways.
My huge concern is always like if the band name becomes something you overthink it becomes really pretentious sounding.
Yes, it can. I always love the bands that have like 6 words in their name.
Yeah, I had a band previously in. I lived in Tennessee for a couple of years and
Cool.
started this kind of bluegrass gypsy jazz band, and we were called the Red River Outlaws. I thought
that's a good name.
It had a nice ring to it, yeah. But no, so for Sputoola, I kind of had this idea that like it would be interesting if we had this like common word that was just said and spelled wrong. So it was sort of easy to remember, but it would still be a little bit search engine optimized. If you name your band the Cell Phones right now, like maybe that would be a cool band name, but it would be so hard to find you on the internet, right?
You would never. Right. No one's ever going to find you. You're never going to rank.
Band, yeah, right. You're gone. The cell phone music, right? So you kind of have to. I don't know. Ian sort of suggested, he's like, I've always liked bands that were just sort of, any old household object, just something comfortable and familiar. And I sort of scratched my head. I was like, you don't want your band to really be called like the Spatulas or something ridiculous like that. And Matt Berry's rubbing his chin in the corner, and he just says, Sputoola. I don't know why. It was like sort of...
It just came to him like that. Not spatula, but Sputoola.
The first time you ever saw the word spatula printed on paper, it doesn't like immediately occur to you to say those letters that way, right? It's like Speatul. Anyway, so it just immediately stuck with me, and I think it became this sort of metaphor for like doing something normal but wrong, and that being its own thing. Like the real novelty is like trying to do something but getting it wrong, right? You can't ever do anything perfectly. So
Well, I think you did Sputoola perfectly. Because if your goal was to make something unique, Like that's so perfect. It's so cute too. I really like your logo and that design. It's good. It
Yeah,
sticks out. And like you said, people will find you. No one's gonna forget that name. And as soon as you type that in on Google, you're the only thing that comes up.
the dream, right? That's all you want. So yeah, that's how Spatula came to be. And yeah, since then we've added a keyboard player. In 2018,
Nice.
a nice man named JJ Vanacore joined and added a lot to the sound. So
Very cool. So do you guys play in town frequently? Are you all in the Burlington area?
yeah, I'm actually the only one outside of the Burlington area. Burlington area. I'm in Essex Junction. I'm outside of Burlington proper, I should say.
Right,
Um,
right. Oh yeah, that's well, I consider this whole area we're kind of like little boroughs of the same kind of city. And it's funny because Essex is basically like the biggest borough, but it's kind of tucked in the back, so it's not I don't know, it doesn't get all the attention that Burlington and Winooski get.
yeah, it's a very bedroom kind of community, and it's too bad. I think it'll start to develop more and more of its own personality in the coming years. Even since I moved back, I moved to Essex in 2015. Originally, I'm from the area. I went to Essex High School,
Oh, cool.
but left for university and lived in Tennessee for a while, and came back, and there was like nothing here, like not even like a coffee shop, and now it's like just starting to have like little bits of culture grow up around it a little bit. So
Yeah, there's been quite a bit happening in that just in that whole region. And now they're really trying to work on the five corners. And I think once that work has happened, who knows what's going to happen in us. I hope it doesn't lose the vibe that it has because it has this I like taking a walk in Essex. Like it feels like
yeah,
a suburb, but in a good way, like a comfortable community. Parts of Burlington feel like that, but it has a city vibe. Being in Burlington, you feel like you're in the city. Being in Essex, you kind of feel like I don't know, like you see kids like riding their bikes on the street, and it's like I don't know, it feels more
true.
Vermonty
So true.
than Burlington does. But we're all Vermonters. I mean, I'm not saying it's not Vermonty in Burlington, but it doesn't have that small town. Like Essex somehow has the most people per capita, I think, of any town in the state now because, and
Interesting.
it still feels like a kind of small town vibe. Like it feels like when you go there, it's not the city. I guess that's all I'm trying to say is it's just not the city, and I hope it kind of maintains that. But clearly, it's growing really fast. I can't believe how much has popped up around the five corners just in the last 10 years. Like since I went to college, there's been so much growth there.
Yeah, yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, I don't know. I hope to I fully intend to stay in Vermont forever if Lord willing. But I would be interested to see how S6 grows up along with me. I participated in a couple of years ago in putting together a sort of music festival in Essex Junction, and for a confluence of sort of factors, it didn't go very well. We had like really bad weather,
Oh, yeah, that's a
and
downer.
some organizational, I'll just leave it at that, issues. Um, and so it just discontinued, but you could tell the community did have like a hunger for it. Was kind of like an art walk music,
Oh, cool.
kind of which is totally the kind of thing that would do really really well here. Just requires so much energy, to get
Right,
the kind of
right.
thing started.
Well, it's interesting now, or at this weird stage in the world, like this whole crisis we're dealing with, weird stage in the world where so much is being canceled, and these events that like the jazz festival, like what a heartbreaking thing that is, and all these
Yeah.
the little fairs around town, in the little towns around the state that are being canceled. There's just a lot of things that feel like they're ending and it's such a
Mhm.
heartbreaking thing. So hopefully this is the time where people really recognize how important those things are and maybe even start more annual projects. Like Essex could really have its own type of festival. It could, and a totally unique one. And the idea is totally open. They could do whatever they want right now because it doesn't exist. So hopefully it happens.
I think it will, and yeah, I agree with you. The strange thing about these kind of catastrophes is it sort of like swings the pendulum of humanity in the other direction, right? It's like nature itself is against us, and so it really requires people to kind of work together again for the common interest
Right. Right.
of
Yeah.
mankind versus kind of airing our petty grievances with each other 24/7, which is a favorite pastime of mine. But it's great to have, in an odd way, it's great to have some sort of tragedy to unite behind, because I think is the real nugget that inspired me to write that song Isolated Together, because it's a really interesting idea that everyone's having this experience of being alone, disconnected from each other, but the fact that everyone has that experience almost at the same time is really unifying in a weird way.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah,
Paradoxical, I guess. Oh, that's it. That was something that I was kind of wrestling with, and it's almost in itself a little bit of, if I just peel the onion back one layer deeper, it's sort of a metaphor for how we are all the time, right? It feels like you're totally alone in your body, in your mind, and disconnected from the rest of the world, but it's kind of like an illusion, right? Because everyone's having that same exact experience.
yeah, that's a
So
really powerful you're exactly right, though. As soon as you said that, I'm nodding along like, yes, you can relate that song and this feeling to everyday life. Like, this is really something we've all struggled with at one point in our lives or another, feeling alone, feeling isolated. And right now, we're all being forced to deal with that. Like, you really, on a really deep level, too. So, yeah, we're all in it together.
yeah, I mean, I guess, and not everyone in this whole, I guess, world feels. I don't know. Maybe I feel that I should say that I feel very privileged that I can social distance and really like basically stay inside for weeks and weeks. But there's all these people who are in the essential workforce and actually have to go out into the world every day, and I guess I should spare a moment of like respect and condolence for that situation, because it's I don't know, it's
It's
horrifying.
scary. Yeah,
What
it's really scary for them right now. And a lot of these essential workers don't get benefits. Like, they're really risking a lot just going to work, but they have to. That's their livelihood.
it's exposed, yeah, I think such a clear gaping flaw
Yeah.
in,
Oh, yeah.
in the system as such. So
Yeah, that's
uh,
the same. I've actually touched on that. I think I've had 4 interviews this last week, and every person I've talked to, we've all expressed that same sentiment. Like, there's something wrong when we can all look at our grocery workers who are literally the ones feeding us right now. On our, we need these people, we need our nurses, and we're not treating them the way they should be. And they're the ones keeping our country going. They're our lifeline right now. And they
absolutely.
really should be given way more respect than they have been in the past. And I feel like that's a real, like, as a society, we're all starting to recognize that. Like, maybe I shouldn't yell at the cashier at the grocery store so much. And, these people that are just trying to make me happy, maybe I shouldn't be so hard on them. Like, maybe life is pretty hard for them too. Like, this is good for us as a people in some ways, because I think it is exposing a lot of big problems that we can fix. We can talk about them, and there are good resolutions. Like, this isn't the end of the world. This is not the end of the world. We can rebuild and make things better.
Yeah, I really hope so. And I mean, I'm even one who typically has a pretty high respect for people who are in service professions. I worked as a grocery store cashier when I was a teenager, and know how thankless a lot of those service jobs can be, and to think
Yeah.
about having this additional dimension of being exposed to life-threatening
Right.
biological pathogens.
Every single customer coming through your checkout line is going to make you nervous right now. Like that must be so stressful for these cashiers.
And of course, at the end of the day, you can't even, or the end of your shift, you can't even go hang out with any of your friends or anything. You just got to go back into your
Right, right.
back,
Go isolate yourself and
yeah.
oh
So
yeah. Yeah, thank you to all of the essential workers. Thank you
sure.
for all that you do. If any of you are listening to us right now, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about the video. So you have your own YouTube channel and you've got the 2 videos on there right now. And we haven't mentioned it yet, but you guys have a self-titled album that you are almost ready to release. And this whole thing has totally blown that out of whack. So tell me all
Right.
about these things.
Yeah. It's interesting. So to back up the album, we started recording basically in January of 2019. We had done a year of just before that, 2018, of pretty much just playing live, doing tons and tons of gigs. We did record that single "Pale Blue Dot," but mostly just getting our feet wet, playing live, nightclubs around Burlington and in the area. But we decided we really wanted to focus on putting together, recorded material, and really took the task pretty seriously. Built a recording studio in our practice room, which is
Oh, cool.
conveniently located in the partially finished basement of my house. And we pretty meticulously recorded a ton of material, about 15 different songs through the course of it, and we're not going to release them all. It was really an exercise in figuring out what was our most developed material. So we recorded this large quantity of songs, picked I think the 6 best of them, what I think are the best. I
Yep.
should say I know that there's 6, and then really dived into producing those as recordings. So we would do dozens and dozens of takes for each of our instruments, layered on a bunch of whatever vocal harmonies, different production elements. Even programming some like orchestral sections all over.
Cool.
Really
So,
exploring a lot of different soundscapes. And
so
yeah,
sorry, I'm totally interrupting, but
please.
did you record each piece and then master them all yourselves too? Is this totally self-recorded?
So it's totally self-recorded. Almost all of it was tracked here in my basement where I'm currently offering this interview, which is why I said here.
Cool.
The drums and guitars and keyboards. The final mix and mastering was actually done at a local recording studio.
Oh,
It
awesome.
was
Which one?
Tank Studio in Burlington on North Winooski.
Cool. I haven't even heard of that one. I have to jot that down.
Yeah,
Winooski.
Tank. It's really good. Rob O'Day and Ben Colette, his partner, run Tank Studio, and have for quite a while. They have their current location is the old Spokes Home.
Oh,
So
cool. That's a
old
nice name.
old Spokes Home, yeah. The used bicycle shop was located in this building for many, many years, and they just moved last year across the street, and Tank Studio moved in.
I see.
So,
Cool.
yeah, Rob and Ben are really cool guys. They were like kind of, I think, technical tour crew for the Fish for many years, and then
Oh,
after
cool. Yeah. I think I've heard of these guys actually, now
yeah,
that you say that.
yep. And after Fish broke up, they started Tank, and Ben and Rob still do a lot of engineering work when Fish goes in to record. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's a really cool studio, really great space, and I really recommend it to a lot of anyone who wants to record. But so Rob actually became sort of my consultant, really, to figure out how to finish the album. And so I really wanted to have a very professional sound, even though we kind of recorded in an amateur sort of space. And so we did a lot of work really cleaning up the recordings, and actually ended up re-recording the entire bass guitar on the album at Tank Studio, and that was a real treat. Rob is actually a bassist, and while he didn't play the bass on the album, he advised on the bass tone. So it was really beneficial working with him, and that was sort of winter last year when we were doing all that. So spent about 4 weeks with Rob. Not constantly, but over several late night sessions, mixing and mastering the album, and it sounds really fantastic to me. It's gone way beyond where I thought it would. So
that's awesome. I have to apologize. I clicked on your drive link and it didn't work, and I didn't click on it again. I'm so sorry. I'll have to listen to your whole album after. But this sounds so cool, though. Is it all the same kind of... It sounds like you do this... We haven't even mentioned. What would you describe your band's sound as before I go any further?
Oh, yeah, that's the dreaded question, isn't it?
Everyone hates that question, but I love asking it because I get such interesting answers.
I call it, like a blend of like funk, psychedelic rock, even some jazz and folk influences. It's difficult to really articulate, for in the retrospective for like Red River Outlaws. It's easy for me to say like now, like, oh yeah, it was kind of like a bluegrass gypsy jazz kind of acoustic band. When I moved back to Vermont, I really wanted to start like a rock band, electric guitar, drum kit, make some noise. And but it was a lot about, I wanted to be able to play music out at nightclubs and have people dance. I feel like that's one of those cultural aspects with Burlington that I always connected with really deeply, that there was just always live music playing somewhere down the street and people there dancing to it, like, this like silly fools. And that's the dream of I feel like a lot of musicians who grew up in the Burlington area, is to, have the opportunity to entertain some of those silly fools. So, yeah, a lot of it's very, very, very funk influenced.
It's a cool medley of sounds, I've got to say. It's funny because it reminds me of jam bands, but you're not jam bandy, where some jam bands just kind of like keep the same exact riff going and going and going. But that's not what you're doing, but you almost have that same kind of chill, happy vibe that I get from a lot of jam bands, only it's much more interesting sounding than a lot of them. I like some jam bands, but some jam bands, I'm just like 20 minutes into the same bass line. I'm like, okay, all right.
Yeah, totally fair. And I love jam bands. I've seen my fair share of Fish shows. I won't say any number. It'll just embarrass half the audience and shame the other. So, but I think one of my secret weapons with it is I'm really focused on songwriting and composing, and so maybe that's a bit of a cliche too. But I actually host a songwriting workshop a monthly songwriting workshop through the Burlington Writers Workshop. It's kind of like an open mic night just for songwriters. So, people bring in their songs and play them, and then we discuss them and give feedback and just have discussions about how to write better songs and different tools and techniques to use. And I've been doing that since about like 2015 when I moved back to Burlington. But even before then, throughout my life, I just got really connected to just writing songs,
Right. So
songs every week, songs every day, if I had a lot of time to myself, and getting that quantity out. So I feel like, that's part of it. It's not really jam in the sense that like we don't know.
Right.
There's a lot of composition that goes into.
That's obvious too. Like you can tell you guys know where you're going, and it's just that sound. I guess it's the jazz funk sound.
Sure.
Like that sound evokes that same kind of feel I get from a lot of jazz bands, but it's interesting. Like I tend to get bored, I think, with a lot of jam bands because it's like the same solo will go on for a really long time. But yours, that was not your music. That's not remotely the case. Like I'm not even like that's not what you guys are doing at all. It's really complicated and audibly interesting, which I really like. I like music like that. That's not quite the norm. It's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah. And I think that's a really fair critique of a lot of jam music. When we play live, it's a very much a read the room kind of approach, because there's times when it would seem totally appropriate to play an extra 5 minutes on the jammy guitar solo section of the song if people are really,
Yep. And I
with
will definitely agree with that, because even rock bands, there's times where like people are so into dancing and into that song that you don't want to just end it there. Like they don't want you to end it there. And that, feeling the vibe of the people is very much important. Yep. I would agree with that.
We played last summer at Delhi 126, which is a very quiet venue for a band like ours. And so it was a totally different approach. It was really focused on, like to play any rock instrument quietly, it requires such a much more intense focus for whatever reason.
Right.
And loudly, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny when you say that. That's very true, because something played softly. It's kind of like when I've heard people say this, when you whisper to someone, everyone leans in and you focus really hard on that sound. So when you're playing an instrument softly, you really notice every note. Like their ears are perked up a little more. They're really hearing it. So as the musician playing the instrument, you feel that, like you feel that intensity a little more.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting. I guess I'd never totally formed this thought before, but that as you start to play louder and sing louder, there's more and more like reckless abandon with whatever sound you're actually making, because it's simply releasing energy, not in any super focused way. So
I'm going to swing back around, and I want to mention that Jason Baker did talk about the songwriting group when he came on the show, which was
awesome.
Very cool. So if people were interested, what times do you normally do this under normal circumstances?
Yeah, well, and this is the good news. We hosted the April workshop. So we have a monthly workshop. It's the second Thursday of each month, and we're currently meeting on Zoom. Typically, we have an amazing workshop space in Burlington on 310 Main Street that the Burlington Writers Workshop pays for. They're a nonprofit, and somehow survive off of donations and grants and things like that.
That's awesome.
To offer free workshops to citizens of Burlington. But we're currently meeting on Zoom, and there's a lot of challenges associated with that. The sound quality and general ability to be constructive.
Right, right.
Having a productive one-on-one conversation like this is exceedingly possible, but as the numbers of people go up, it becomes, I think, more and more difficult.
Much more complicated. Yeah, it's hard to get everyone's opinion on things. But that is great that you're still doing it, because what you could almost do instead of have people respond back verbally, you could have, okay, this person has the floor now, and everyone type their responses back. So it's less noise and more focus. Because that's how you guys, I think from what Jason told me, it's like, okay, this is what I'm working on. And then you get feedback. So that's awesome. I'm so happy you're still doing it. I'm sure people are going to be interested in continuing to do that too, because everyone's working on their songs right now, stuck at home.
I think so. And it's amazing. The best part about it, I don't really think is necessarily getting feedback from other people. That is very valuable. But I think the approach the songwriter takes when they know they're actually going to play this song for people who are going to listen to it. It's a subtle kind of magic energy to that, because a lot of people just write songs totally for themselves, or by the time they play it for other people, they haven't really thought about the audience that's ever going to receive the song, which I don't know, maybe that sounds like a good idea on its face, but it's really not. If you want to write a great song, it's got to be great to someone. It's got
right. It has to be well received.
There can't be a line in there that jumps out to them as totally ridiculous and doesn't make any sense, or that the same word being repeated is distracting. I don't know, all these little tiny technical details of writing songs that you don't really think about until you're going to be exposed to potential criticism, and it's made me a better songwriter. So I imagine it helps other people too.
I was just laughing because I was thinking of all the pop songs with such stupid lyrics on the radio, and you guys meeting up in a group in Burlington, like you said, you're actually thinking about how is someone going to receive this line? Like, just the stupid things that get said, like caking on me, bacon on me. That's an actual line from a song that was like #1, I believe, on the pop charts for a while. Caking on me, bacon on me. What the heck does that mean? And like, it sounds so dumb. So I very much appreciate that you guys are putting some real thought and effort into it, because someone like me, I listen to lyrics and I question those things, and I wonder why it's on the radio.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to do some research to articulate an appropriate response to the caking on me, bacon on me.
I don't think that had anything besides like innuendo in it. I think that whole line was just some sort of innuendo, but like really badly presented. Hilarious. Like, that's hilarious to me though, that these people write these songs, they don't think about what it, like, I seriously doubt the guy that said that line had any other intention than I need some lines to say in this song.
Right.
And that was the result, and they sold zillions of copies, because that's the music industry. But real musicians, real artists really think so hard and are so careful about every note, every word.
Well, sure. And there's something to be said, like there's an art unto itself for the things crafted totally for their commercial utility, right? You could buy like a chair made by like a really nice craftsman or something, right? And it's all this nice wood and polished, and he really worked hard on crafting this chair. And you might like to sit in that at home, but a chair like that is never going to be useful to the McDonald's Corporation to populate millions of locations around the world with chairs, right? So you need to design something, and it's kind of like that, right?
That's the funniest comparison I've ever heard in my life. McDonald's can't mass produce that. Oh, that's so accurate. Like, you gotta spoon feed the masses.
Or whatever,
Right. Spoon feed the masses that cheap stuff that just goes down, that tastes good.
Exactly right. It's got to be totally pressed clean of any possible you know what I mean, friction in its production. It's got to be down to the bare essential minimum viable product.
Oh man, I'm always gonna now imagine the pop industry as McDonald's. Like, oh my gosh,
Oh,
that's
yeah, I mean, kind of, right? You know, that's like the most popular food in America or something.
yeah, is total garbage that you can get for really cheap. And you oh, how sad. That's very, very true though. It
Yeah.
kind of makes me upset because there are so many phenomenal musicians that the mainstream never even is gonna look at, because the mainstream is Taylor Swift. And I'm gonna hate on Taylor Swift for a minute, just because I like hating on Taylor Swift. That woman, her father bought the record company that produced her first album. She is not some small town American girl that made it big. She is a corporate product. She was created to be a pop star. From the beginning, her daddy bought the company and said, "Make my daughter a pop star." That, in and of itself, is what's wrong with the music industry. Like, that wasn't birthed of talent or anything else. Like, that is not a true musician. Like, sure,
Yeah.
she has 20 producers making songs that hit number one, but that's McDonald's manufactured garbage, right? Like, that's 20 producers. It takes 20 producers to make a hit song. Like, that, ugh, that's
Mm.
just gross. That's all the ingredients that go into that McGriddle thing.
Right.
Like, all that packed in weird manufactured artificial garbage. Yeah, that's
Right.
not good music. Like, good music is real artists thinking about words, thinking about messages.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, you know, it's obviously a truism that there's, you know, connections are almost everything in the music industry. I lived in Nashville area for a couple of years myself, and
Cool.
found it pretty unsuccessful to even enter into the music industry there. Not even as a performer, but even as a worker, like
Right.
someone
Right.
to be a receptionist at a recording studio or something like that.
Right. Yeah, I've made a joke many times that if Janis Joplin was born when I was born, no one would ever have known her name, because the music industry isn't about talent anymore. It's about image and saleability. Sad. But you guys are not like that. You actually think about it, you create something. When a person says to me they compose their work, that means so much, right? Like, you
Well,
actually think about it.
and that's my big theory, is that the presence of the success of something like McDonald's does not mean that people shouldn't learn how to cook nice food at home. In fact, it's like exactly the opposite, right? The fact that popular music is so bad is not something to decry. It's actually an amazing opportunity, because that means that the music that you make with your friends could be really good, right?
Right, right. Oh yeah, it could mean so much more to the world. Like, that's and the people that hear it, it means so much more to them than the pop song. Like, when has there ever been, like, they write these really garbage generic pop songs, people are like, "Oh, this speaks to me." And it's like this love song that's really generic. And I don't feel like I emotionally connect with those songs as much as I connect with ones from, like, a lot of folk singers, like people who really write a story and, like, pull in an emotion into a song.
Well, here's an interesting topic, because this is interesting. Do you know that Bob Dylan, the
The great Bob Dylan.
I don't have to explain who Bob Dylan is, but Bob Dylan received his first Billboard #1 hit just this past month.
Oh, really? I knew
Yeah,
he just released an album, but I
he
didn't realize that.
he
Yeah, go ahead.
released. I haven't even listened to it yet, because it's a 17-minute long song about JFK's assassination.
Oh, wow. Oh, I need to listen to that.
It's called A Murder Most Foul, and it's his first #1 hit, a 17-minute narrative
Wow. Oh,
about
that.
the JFK assassination. So I don't
Oh,
know
I
if
just got goosebumps,
it,
man. I'm excited about
it,
that. He's such a poet.
but it really does seem. I mean, it could be that we've actually reached this peak of, music really can't get any more stupid, such that there's going to be a huge pendulum swing in the opposite direction. I don't know. There's a potential for it, but
I think there really is a big potential for it because the underground is growing at a phenomenal rate. Like artists that aren't really mainstream, that they aren't pushed the same way. Like I think of Shaky Graves. He's one of these people he's so famous, but you don't hear him on the radio. Like I don't ever hear him on the radio. I don't hear anything about him in mainstream media. But that concert that he had in Shelburne, he had it at the Shelburne Farms last year. Everyone knew the words at
oh
that
yeah,
concert. Like people love this guy. He's an I would say he's an American hero because he's bringing together the country in this really positive, powerful way. Someone wrote as a comment on one of his YouTube videos that Shaky Graves makes me proud to be an American when not much else does. And that's kind of how I feel about a lot of these musicians. And the
yeah.
people feel so strongly about the music that we're forcing it into the mainstream. Like he's going to be mainstream soon, I think, because how can he have sold out concerts everywhere and not be mainstream?
Yeah, interesting. I do have a funny Shaky Grave story that I don't think I'm going to tell. I don't
You
want
don't
to.
have to.
I
You
don't
can
want to
tell it if
ruin
you
your.
want.
I don't want to ruin your image of him. It doesn't paint him in the most generous light.
I'm not saying that he's like the greatest guy in the world, but I do love his music. Like I do like listening to his songs.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
He opened, believe it or not, for one of my friend's defunct bands. Shaky Graves is from the Austin area, and so
yes,
my
yeah.
friend also had a band in Austin, and they were releasing their debut album. The band was called Befriend the Bears, and the album was called Before They Take Over. And anyway, Shaky Graves opened. This was before he kind of exploded more on the national scene, and it wasn't really that bad. Shaky Graves also happened to be selling an album, even though he was kind of an opener. And apparently he did a little bit of a ruse. They had like a raffle to give away a free album or something, and like Shaky Graves went up on stage and claimed the raffle and then promoted his album again.
Okay. Like that was
That's my Shaky Graves story.
Yeah. A lot of people do that. Isn't it funny when people do things like that? Or it's like, you're here for this concert, and then they start like they'll take the mic and they're talking about something like not really related, and everyone's just kind of like, okay, moving on. like that's funny. That doesn't really surprise me though, because I mean he's self-promoting. Like that doesn't surprise me at all. That he would do that.
It doesn't bother me at all. Yeah, I honestly think that is what separates people who are at least independently successful from. I mean, you can have bad luck and you can have good luck, but neither kind of luck makes really any difference unless you have like a ton of hustle.
Right.
And I think that's one thing that is in shorter and shorter supply in the.
Yeah, he seems like a hustler. Some of his interviews I've watched with him, he seems like he's really trying to make it in the music industry in like an aggressive way. And it's so weird how popular he is. It still just blows my mind that like you don't hear about him on the radio. I don't even know what station would play him though. I guess he doesn't fit into the popular music norms that we've created. Because he's not country. Like he's not hangy twangy country, and he's not rock. And he's not even close enough to rock that the Buzz would play them. That's basically everything. So I don't know. Like you're not going to hear him on the radio unless we make a whole new radio station that just doesn't subscribe to any mainstream norm, which that's the whole media in itself, right? Like mainstream norms. You have certain aisles you have to fall into, or they just ignore you.
I don't know. I'm a little out of sync now with the mainstream. I feel that the whole, Mumford and Sons banjo wielding indie rock has kind of come and gone, but maybe it's still around. I know that was extremely popular for the last 10 years, but
yeah, that's definitely one that's grown, but that's also another like commercialized sound. Like Mumford and Sons, I feel like inspired loads of other bands that sound just like them, which is not bad. It's good to be inspired, but it's just funny. Like you say that, like that Mumford and Sons sound, and I know exactly what you're talking about. It's that buzz radio popular music.
yeah. It's like folk, but mostly pop.
Yeah, it's very poppy. Like they're playing instruments, but it's very poppy. Like I always think of Jason Mraz. Like he plays an instrument, but man, that guy is poppy. Like he's like you can't get much more poppy.
Maybe I'll go back to where we left off the album, and I don't know, kind of the question mark hanging out over my head now. So we finished the mixing and mastering at Tank Studio, and that really told me that it was time to start figuring out how to release an album. And so I did some research and got my artist working on the album art, and I really wanted to find some way to have a way to market this so that people would hear it if they wanted to. I'm not aspiring to be Jason Mraz or even Shaky Graves for that matter, but the whole joy of making music is to share with other people, and maybe there's other folks out there who like this kind of progressive funk jazz rock as well. So
there's plenty of them. Like I believe there are loads of people who
I would love for them to hear it, right? So
that's the thing. You got to get it out there. So you have to do that marketing thing, even if you don't really like it. But at least it's gotten a lot easier.
Even if you don't want money, you still have to hustle just for people to listen to it. So it occurred to me, I feel that the best marketing vehicle for music nowadays is actually video, which is kind of ironic, but it's the platform everyone listens to music on their phones and computers. Yep. And if their eyes aren't entertained, they're probably not going to listen to it, right? It's a very, very strange thing.
It's kind of weird how music has, because it used to be like sending songs to each other wasn't really a big deal, but now like sending an MP3 to someone feels weird, and like your phone doesn't even handle it well. As soon as you click off of it stops playing. Like you want that better integration where you can send sound and have it work well. I think we're getting there. I feel like digital media is slowly catching up, because like the podcasts in and of themselves are this huge audio thing and people really like them. So I feel like we're gonna find a way to share music easier. There's a lot of mechanisms to do it, but I feel like it's actually our phone. Like it's the actual technology we're using that's kind of holding us back. So you have to use video. Like you need to use video, or else there's not, you don't get the same effect.
The only metaphor I can think about is that because I see this in myself, right? The music that people listen to, like music that's just on their phone or on their Spotify or whatever that they're actually listening to, like you would never really listen to anything that you weren't already comfortable with, that you already wanted to listen to, whether it was already in a genre that you wanted to listen to or an artist you already wanted to listen to. Right. It's like the clothes you wear, right? You're not just going to put on someone's clothes because they want you to wear it. It's like, no, like you would never listen to a band that you weren't familiar with. Like that's not part of my identity. Like I'm not going to listen to that. So you have to like break that that you have to break that barrier somehow. Like, and I think video is one of those mediums just because it's so imminent. If you're just scrolling through Instagram and you see this image of people playing instruments, like maybe that would intrigue you enough to actually to break that barrier and allow that music to enter your ears. But it's a very funny thing, and it seems that more and more we have to kind of design our art for algorithms, which I guess is a little weird, but
it's true though. It's kind of funny because it's like whatever people are gonna like, which is that's like graphic design in and of itself, right? It's like getting people's attention and focusing on what you want them to focus on. You're very right about that though. Like the internet, you need to bring in video, you need to bring in images, you need to basically make yourself this three-dimensional object on the internet. Like you need to exist as a band, like visibly, audibly, in any and show video of yourself actually doing things. And somehow through all of that, you start finding different people through a bunch of different means. But it's a lot of work. Like that's a lot of effort up front.
Sure. And it's like, well, God forbid someone actually is interested enough to go looking for you. You actually want them to have something to find.
Yes.
I beginner's mind, I kind of started from scratch and figured out, okay, how do you do a music video? So I wrote out a whole storyboard. I hired a videographer who had done some photography for us before. I secured a location. I invited a bunch of extras, mostly our wives and girlfriends and our buddies to come out and be extras in the music video.
Well, it sounds like you took it super seriously. Like that's really smart. You planned it out ahead of time, so you didn't just go into it with a camera and then you're awkwardly standing there like, now what? Do something.
Yeah, literally 13 pages of like storyboard with like scenes sketched out and stuff like that. And that was would have been filmed on March 13th, and it was that weekend basically that everything got super weird really quickly.
Yep, that was the last day before I got sent home from work, and I haven't been back since. So
yeah, that same night, buddy had a 30th birthday party planned. That was canceled, and so that was the whole dominoes. I won't complain about my cancellations because I'm sure there's
so many. Everyone's hurting. Everyone's hurting right now.
That was my domino. So I was like, oh, well, okay. So I can't have this incredible visual tool that I put all this work in to develop to market the music. I was like, do I even release it now? And I still haven't totally answered that question to myself. I don't know if I should just wait this out or.
Right. Yeah, it's a hard question because you want that content. But you don't know how long it's going to go.
Right. And people are all sitting around their computers for 12 hours a day now. So maybe now's the best time to release something.
Right. And so much stuff's being like, I can't believe the amount of music that has been quickly recorded and thrown online. And some of these songs are incredibly phenomenal. I found this band out of Chile that it's become like my jam for the pandemic. I love this song so much. These people don't have a professional recording studio. They don't have anything professional. They actually held up a cell phone of their friend singing and just ran the line to the audio. Like that's how they made the video. And it's so good. So, I mean, anything that you've put a lot of effort in right now, I think will stand out actually, because so much is coming out just to make the content, just to help support each other. But if you actually put a lot of work into it right now, it's going to shine compared to all of this other stuff, especially if it's good content worth consuming. Like, wow, this is actually really, well thought out. Like someone put some effort into this. This wasn't just them, in their basement today. Like, let's make a quarantine video.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. It's really interesting because there's definitely there's values at both ends of the spectrum, right? And one of the things I kind of was kicking myself for is that I felt like I had spent so much time and effort to kind of like perfect all the details of this album that now it was like too late or something to release it at all, because I'd missed my chance to fully realize this vision of having all the content set up the way I wanted to, and then having a big album release party with with all my friends at some fantastic Burlington nightclub. And
you'll have that
know.
though. You're definitely gonna have that. I think
Right.
I would honestly, if I were you, and I mean, well, I might cut this out of the interview because I don't want to be telling you what to do, but I might go back and just keep on teasing that keep on teasing that album. Like, when this is all done, we're gonna have a party, like, and we're gonna play this album, and it's gonna be a big deal.
Yeah. But I mean, in the meantime, I'm kind of focused on also like just staying really creative, and that's why we kind of put together that isolated together demo. It was something that we could just like you said, sort of throw together in our basement and didn't have to focus so much on being everything.
That video was really well put together though. Like, I know you all recorded it separately, but like, you put a lot of work into that. That wasn't like a lot of the quarantine videos I've seen. Like, there was clearly some effort and some thought, and that was a very good video. I'm definitely not saying that's a quarantine video. Like, I wouldn't even, that one could be its own video outside of the quarantine. It's funny how closely it relates to the quarantine, and like we were talking, it actually relates to life all the time. So yeah, so you're definitely putting in a lot of more effort than some people, just thinking about it and being careful about how you're presenting yourself.
Absolutely. And I think one of the reasons I did that is because I observed sort of the trend. You're probably hinting at is that with the first week, everyone's at home, and I did this myself. I was like, oh, maybe I'll finally check out this Facebook Live thing.
Right.
And,
yep.
I'm like on my guitar doing this Facebook Live video, and it seems like literally dozens and dozens of my friends are doing a Facebook Live video at the exact same time with the exact same acoustic guitar. And I really like stepped back, and I was like, yeah, there's not much, there's not much novelty at this particular moment, me trying this medium. So like, maybe I should work out something just a little bit more polished, just a little bit more consumable.
I like things like that, because if you'd shown me that video a month ago, it's like, this really doesn't hold true just to the quarantine. I was talking to someone else about this too, that content being produced right now, it's massive. There's so much content being produced, but in a year, will it be relevant?
Right.
I think that the video you produced will be. Like, that's still going to be a great song. It's still going to be a powerful message, but I don't really want to rewatch a lot of the things I have watched. So being relevant through the times, that's really important. Just putting in that extra step to think about it really is worth something.
Yeah, definitely. And mostly it's just about me, I being creative. Like, what I really think I would like people to think about when they see my work is how they can figure out how to turn, these seemingly negative kind of obstacles in life into something creative that they can enjoy. I mean, I think that is really the most human thing you can do right now, is like look at all, what seems like obstacles in your path to success, and figure out how you can creatively turn them into opportunities. Because there's always something hiding just below the surface. And yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out for sure.
Yep. Yeah, just growth from this challenge, growing out of something difficult, making something better out of dealing with this. It's a very positive thing. And I think that's how growth happens. Like, change, painful things, dealing with problems. I really hope that as a society, as a world, we're going to take this whole situation and try and make something positive out of it. Like, try and make something that, instead of is just a huge downer and we're going to look back on and, oh, this was so horrible, we can look back and say, but look at all the good that resulted from this, as opposed to just how terrible it was forever. Like, because there are good things that can come from this, like just the music alone. Like, I was kind of saying, like, these videos might not be relevant right now, but there's so much good will in those videos and positivity and helping each other. Like, there's so many people trying to reach out to each other right now and spread that message of positivity, build something good.
Yeah, it definitely seems that there's a lot of wisdom to be gained from seeing how how we use these tools. The internet has, I feel like, in recent times been used for a lot of really negative social interactions for years and years and years. And I think we're starting to realize that when it really counts, like, that's not going to cut it anymore. Like, arguing with your family members, about politics, that's not the right way to use these tools. That's not gonna cut it when
Right.
when we're in the middle of a catastrophe and need to keep our friends and families connected and safe and sane and happy and secure. It's going to take a different different kind of approach and understanding to using these wonderful technological tools we have at our disposal.
Yep. Yeah, we're very lucky we have the tools so that we can reach out to each other right now.
Yeah, but it allows us to do stuff like this, and that's super
exactly.
cool. I mean,
we can still record interviews, we can still talk to each other, you can still play music, and I can still listen to it.
Yeah.
We're pretty lucky. Like, we all should really take a minute to think of just how lucky we really are, because can you imagine if this had happened in 2001?
Right.
No
Yeah.
video chatting, very minimal, like even long distance calling back then.
Yeah.
Like, that was really expensive depending on where you lived.
Netflix or something like that. I mean,
right. Oh yeah. Like, the amount of things that we are so lucky to have. And like, some countries, some people don't have these things. Like, they're currently dealing with this and they don't have these tools. They aren't as blessed as most of us are in this area. And we should all appreciate that and really give thanks to the fact that we can reach out to each other and make something positive.
Yeah, I'm super grateful for everything I have, for sure. I mean, now is such a great time to have a space in your life for something like music, because it's this inward pursuit, right? It's fun to explore it outside, with other people if you can, but it's definitely not a prerequisite. You can dive in to an entire world of music of your own creating if you have the right motivation, I guess.
Right. I just want to end on a final note that someone made a beautiful comment on the internet, and I'm going to kind of steal it, but I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember their phrasing. We always ignore the artists and the musicians, but in this crisis, who are we relying on the most right now to keep us sane, to keep us together? It's the artists and the musicians, and we really should, just like the essential workers, just like the grocery workers, just like every person that we're relying on, when you go home and you listen to an album or you watch a music video, who's taking care of you right there? Who's helping your mental health? The musicians, the artists. Like, what you're doing is really important. Like, people kind of downplay art, but right now, culture is what is keeping us sane.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for what you're doing. And thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, well, thank you for what you're doing. I think, if I could just reflect that compliment right back at you, it's so important to have these platforms to expose these ideas and this cultural content. So I'm really grateful for you and having this opportunity to talk with you. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I love having these conversations. I absolutely love it. So thank you so much. And that was Seth Cronin of Sputoola, the band. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Thanks again, Seth, for coming on the show. I'm sorry it took so long to get out. Sometimes life just happens, though. It was a great conversation. It was fun jogging my memory editing this. If you're wondering when it was recorded, it was back in April. So, finally getting all of these episodes out and finally recording new episodes. If you are interested in being on the show, reach out to Becca at VermontTalks.com. You can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Twitter, you can find me anywhere. You can also find me on my own website, VermontTalks.com. The show notes for this episode are at VermontTalks.com/18. If you would like to subscribe to the show, it would be greatly appreciated. And leaving me reviews is so awesome. I love when I find reviews from people. I love ideas. I just love talking to the community. I think that's pretty clear because I made this podcast. So reach out to me. I want to talk to you. Have a great day. And that was what was new in the 802 back in April. The Vermont Talks show music was created by Jason Baker. Thank you so much, Jason, for making the music. You can check out his website at jbakervt.com.